You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. Okay, listeners, welcome back to the show. Today, I'm thrilled to bring on Ramin Ramhormozi, the Managing Director of SKU Agency. So, Ramin, welcome to the show.
Pat, thank you very much for having me on. And I know we've tried to schedule this quite a bit, and I really appreciate your patience with that. And I am so excited that you are getting this podcast off the ground, and I'm excited to be here and talk about everything e-commerce.
Well, you inspired me. I think it was 2-3 years ago we sat down, you interviewed me, and I probably told you on that interview, like, oh yeah, I really want to launch my own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So
you did.
Here we are 2-3 years later, I'm finally implementing.
I love it. You stuck to your word. That's perfect.
Well, Ramin, would love to start out with an overview about you. Let's jump in. Talk to us about what is SKU Agency and what do you guys really focus on?
Sure, absolutely. So SKU Agency, we've been around for, I think it's 7.5 years. We started out just doing Shopify design and development work, and eventually we got into email and SMS marketing, kind of adding that as our digital marketing service. And then we obviously worked with you guys on the SEO side of things. And along the way, we really realized that email and SMS marketing was an area we were very passionate about and excited, and really were doing good work. So we went all in on email and SMS marketing, and eventually found our way into the vineyard and winery space and some wine brands as well. And I've been helping them really get their retention marketing side of their business in good shape. A lot of people can see email marketing has changed quite a bit over the last few years, a lot of automation. So we are deep into the world of email and SMS marketing when it comes to helping wineries and vineyards get that side of their business off the ground, as I said.
Love it. I love it. Well, cool. Well, listeners, just jumping in with a quick little side note, Ramin agreed to be very generous with his time. Certainly, he's a email marketing, or maybe retention marketing, let's say, might be a better term for it, email and SMS centric marketing expert. He has agreed to shift the focus a little bit for today's segment. Ramin's been helping businesses probably for the past 25 years, really go from just launching to building a really successful venture over time.
Yeah. I have a passion.
Ramin has
passion for that side.
Yeah, absolutely. But Ramin has agreed to really focus today's session on, I love the term that you used to describe it, like emerging e-commerce businesses, really helping businesses that maybe just have like an Etsy store today that are looking to go to the next level, businesses that maybe are doing 5 figures in annual revenue and are looking for some tactics to scale up more effectively. So Ramin agreed that he would shift the focus and deal with quite a few questions about that specific subject matter.
Absolutely.
Ramin, with that, we'd love to start out. Let's say that today I'm running an Etsy store. Maybe it's the type of thing maybe I'm doing at nights and weekends, but I really want this to become my full-time gig. I want to be able to quit my day job and start doing this full-time. I'm building a product I'm really passionate about. Let's talk a little about that process. So maybe if I'm looking to reach that next stage, what are some of the big considerations that businesses will typically have to go through?
We always love talking about the world of e-commerce and, what it can do. And every time we feel that, wow, Shopify has over 2 million stores on the platform and maybe it's saturated, e-commerce is honestly in some ways still in its infancy. We're still discovering these new ways of doing business. And I love the fact that emerging entrepreneurs are interested and still want to come and build an e-commerce business. And, a lot of them look to maybe what they feel maybe could be easier places like Etsy. Right? You can put up an Etsy store relatively easy. Especially if you're a maker and you're making your own products, you can get those up on there. You have your fees to Etsy that you have to pay, but you don't have to pay infrastructure, and you're on a platform that has traffic. It doesn't mean that you put your product up there and all of a sudden you have a load of business. But what I like to shed light on with e-commerce entrepreneurs is that's one piece of the puzzle. And we'll call that the marketplace side. And marketplaces play a very important role when it comes to e-commerce, right? That's a good starting place. But a well-rounded e-commerce strategy would be really having a full, having your own online store. Get yourself, that is your owned channel. You own that. That is not, you don't own Etsy. You don't own the customer on Etsy. Yes, you have access to them, but when it comes to your own online store, whether you go the route of Shopify, or you go the route of Squarespace or Wix or some of the other platforms that are out there, and there's so many of them, you start to understand that I can start building these different channels. And maybe some, and I work with a lot of clients who have brick and mortar businesses. They have this brick and mortar side of the business. They maybe have done something on Etsy or another marketplace, and now they're looking at their online store. And I look at that as a very well-rounded strategy that you can do over time, right? I say, figure out the channel you're on and learn it really well before you jump to the next channel. But it's an exciting time. I will say technology has gotten easier in this from the standpoint of you can get up on a platform relatively easy, right? Even in the world of Shopify, I can teach you how to get on, and get you set up on Shopify within 30 to 45 days, and maybe if not sooner, if you're very diligent. But what's gotten harder, I think, is the world of marketing, right? That's where the challenges lie. And that's where, I always do say, build it and they will not come, just as a adage to remember that you can't just build it and leave it alone. This is not a set it and forget it process. You got to be all in. Get that store up running, whether you're doing, again, if you're just starting out with Etsy or you're doing Shopify. But look for that well-rounded approach.
So a couple follow-ups that came out of that. There are certainly so many different platforms that you could choose to build on. You had mentioned a couple examples like Wix, Squarespace, Shopify. You could work with like a WordPress, Magento, far too many that we could name, on this single segment. Let's say we could spend half an hour rambling on those. Sure. From the e-commerce side of things, what are a couple of the platforms that you recommend the most often? And maybe are there specific scenarios where you'd recommend one platform over another?
Yeah, you should probably kick the tires on a few of them. And before you do that, you should definitely write down requirements. You should understand your business. What is it going to take to sell your products online? Maybe you have complexities. Maybe you're offering personalized products, and can the platform help you capture that engraving information? Or maybe you're doing custom products where somebody has to upload a logo. Can the platform do that? What are your SEO challenges? How does that platform handle SEO? I mean, that's your area, and I'm sure you look at these areas, and there's certain platforms that you like better than others when it comes to search engine optimization. But I like to say, sit down, and it doesn't have to be a complicated document, right? A one-page document determining exactly what the platform needs to do for you and what you're expecting to get out of it. And then start kicking the tires. And that's really it. Go set up trial accounts. You may not know your way around them, but you can definitely, there's a lot of information out there, and we'll talk about the platform that we're launching. There's going to be a lot of information to help people make these decisions, merchants make these decisions. But what I also do is get in touch with their customer support. Get your list and go down the list. They want to earn your business, right? They want your business. Maybe daunting to, get on chat or to get on, if you can even call some of them these days, it might be a little challenging, but get those questions answered, or find an expert who you can consult with to help you answer. Because yes, as you said, there are a lot of platforms. And if I was going to pick, probably the safest one, I think we say at the end of the day, Shopify is probably the safest in terms of it has most, if not all, the features that you're going to need. It is a platform that will scale with you. But I'm pretty impressed with Squarespace. It's, coming along nicely. They kind of cater. Wix and Squarespace really started more content-based, and then commerce became a component that they added into the mix. But, Shopify is all in on commerce. That is their thing. Especially if at brick and mortar, I work, as I mentioned, a lot of clients that I work with have brick and mortar stores, and having that unified platform that can do both the point of sale as well as your online store and connect you with channels like Etsy and other marketplace platforms out there. So I write my requirements. I would say that's what I would recommend to an emerging entrepreneur to do. And then from there, go kick those tires.
I love it. And great idea to your point. It doesn't have to be anything overly complex. It could just be, sit down with a sheet of paper and just jot down, I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to ship to all these places.
Yeah. And Pat, if I may
understand those cool.
Yeah, if I may just add that, don't feel trapped by, okay, I made a decision. I decided to go with Squarespace, and oh my gosh, now I'm starting to hear, I just talked to an advisor and they told me that, boy, what'd you do that for? You should have done Shopify. Don't ever feel, as long as you've done your homework, you can move at some point. You don't have to stay it's not daunting to move. It's not fun either. And, nobody likes to move their house either. But at the end of the day, you can, if you ever need to, and go. But I would look to the future. If you feel confident that you're going to build a strong business, then find that platform that can grow with you too, and that can be there for you many years down the road.
Let's say that I'm planning on launching my site. Let's say I'm going to go with Shopify starting out. What are some of the big items that are going to come into play as I'm, going from, hey, I have this idea, I decided I'm going to work with Shopify to actually getting to launch, let's say, whether it's 3 months, whether it's 6 months down the road?
Sure. After you get those requirements and after you make your decision on the platform, I'd probably sit down and actually expand those requirements a little bit more. I'd start getting into maybe the branding side of it. How do you want to approach the brand? And let's remember that logo is not a brand. It's part of branding. Let's not just put your logo on there, but how you want to grow this business. And then from there, you start to look at, I would make sure I understand the platform, get a feel for it, take a tour. When I'm working with small businesses that are looking to get onto a platform, I'll give them a tour and literally screen share and walk them through it so they can see. And you want to feel comfortable. Shopify, I know, spends a lot of money on the back end of Shopify so they can make sure that entrepreneurs feel comfortable in the platform. They know where to go, but still, it can be daunting. But at the end of the day, my first step after I figured out what does this look like in there and how do I operate in there, I'm looking to the theme store. I want to find a theme, especially if I'm a new business. I don't have most likely the budget to go hire a big agency to design my site and trick it out and customize it. I'm going to be looking to a theme or a template, depending on what platform you are, and they call them different things, but they are the same. You find a theme. So if I'm on Shopify, I'm going to the theme store. I usually just themes.shopify.com. And it's actually a fun process. I encourage entrepreneurs to find at least 3 themes that make the most sense to their business. Sort of like when you're kicking the tires on the platforms. Now I want you to kick the tires on a theme and find maybe 3 themes that make a difference or are in line with your goals and vision. Now you're going to say to me, it's just a design. No, it's not just a design. It's a framework, right? A theme is essentially a framework. And in that framework, there are features. And not every theme has the same features. And you need to look at those features and decide which ones make the most sense and which ones have the most important features that you need for your business. Now, you're probably going to supplement a lot of areas where if there isn't something in the theme, you're going to be looking to the Shopify App Store for those add-ons or plugins. A lot of people call them plugins. Shopify calls them apps to help you expand the reach of the technology within your business. So I think that's the first place I would look is I would go theme shopping and call it that because it can be fun. You're just looking at and don't get enamored by these designs. Shopify does or the theme developers do a great job of making their themes look like beautiful stores. But remember, it is a framework that you're working with and you can add these themes to your store, no charge, and test them out. Do a trial run with them and see, go in there and start playing around and building and go into the theme editor and start testing around. You're not going to affect any of the products. That's for sure. Because those products they reside independently and the page is independent from what happens in the theme, making it easy for you. If you don't like the theme you pick, to pick a new theme down the road.
I love that overview, Ramin. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're in your observation about being able to work with Shopify themes, especially in the early days, phenomenal way to save costs.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm fairly tech savvy. I found a great theme to work with. Mm-hmm. Would you say that the average tech savvy individual would be able to kind of figure out how to build their own Shopify site? Is it the type of thing where you really need to hire an outside developer for it? How would you think about that?
Yeah, I've worked with all different types of entrepreneurs, and some of them are all in and they watch every video they can out there and they really get in there and test around. But I'd say for the most part, having somebody to walk you through it, somebody to be there, an advisor or somebody, like we'll call them office hours, where you can come in and ask your questions, right? You can go to Shopify support, but you're probably going to be on chat and it's back and forth and you may not get all the answers you want right away. For the most part, I believe their chat support is very good, but it's not necessarily meant to guide you on a build, right? That's where working, and again, I like the model in this scenario. It is a done with you model. Sure. Can you go done for you? Absolutely. And I work with many people who say, you know what? I don't want to do it, Ramin. I have no interest. I want this thing to be up and running and I want to focus on other things. And that's fine too. Finding options out there can be, it's definitely possible. There are plenty of people on Upwork. There's Shopify experts out there. You can go that route. But I think that for the most part, most entrepreneurs who want to take this on themselves with some guidance, some office hours, if you will, or something else like that can help them in a done with you. Because guess what? They're going to learn a lot, Pat. They're going to learn about the platform. If you kind of just let it be and give it to somebody else, you're going to come into there. And I've seen this happen. You come in there and you seem a bit lost. as the owner of the business. It's like somebody gave you the keys and now you walk into your own store trying to relate to the physical world and you're like, I don't know where anything is. What's that? Why do you do that? And what's going on here? And then forever, you're dependent on a developer to do this for you. So I encourage everybody out there who wants to take a shot to take it on their own, but also to seek that guidance through the process.
I love that. And even building upon that, you touched on such an important point of the idea of really wanting to make sure that whether you work with an outside developer or not, that ultimately you understand how can you make at least the straightforward changes on your site. That's certainly something where we've worked with businesses in the past that just have really no sense of like how to make a minor tweak to their site. And it's such an important skill set, really in terms of efficiency and also just cost savings. If you know you need to make one micro tweak, you know how to make at least the more straightforward changes, it's going to save you a ton in the long term over hiring a developer for every one of those updates.
Yeah. And I'd say, Pat, just to the listeners out there, we're not talking about getting necessarily into the code and changing code. We're talking about Shopify works off of sections and blocks, and similar to Squarespace. And you're adding a section, and then within that section, you're adding a block. So you add a banner, and within there, the section would be the banner. The block would be the text, for example, or a button or something like that. So you're just adding those components. But you have the entire internet, or you have maybe your competition base. You've determined who your competitors are, looking at their sites and getting an idea of like, all right, how do I want to lay this out? What's the best way to do this? If I was building a store, that's the first place I would look. Competition, see how they're doing it. I'd also go get a tool like Build With and go see what platforms my competitors are on. Maybe they're on Shopify, maybe they're on Squarespace. Get an idea. There may be a reason why they picked those platforms. Back to your original question of picking platforms. It's not daunting, but it does require guidance. And I think that you get there faster if you utilize options out there that can help you get to the finish line faster and more effectively.
We've gotten to the point where version 1 of, let's say, the design and development of the site is ready to go. Let's talk about some of the other considerations before we're ready to launch. Whether we're working with like a Squarespace or a Shopify, what do I need to be mindful of when I'm launching that store? Let's say in terms of like the taxes and compliance side of things, with the caveat, of course, that I'll mention for all of our lawyers that are listening in. Neither one of us is official lawyers, attorneys. This does not represent official legal advice. You know, certainly consult with your lawyer, your tax attorney, you name it.
Always.
Hopefully that's enough for everyone. But with that, Ramin, jump right in. Talk to me about some of those maybe compliance considerations that I should discuss with my lawyer and my tax attorney.
Yeah. I mean, definitely let's talk taxes. Taxes are complex, especially in the United States. If anybody's listening abroad in other parts of the country, in this case, I will only refer to the United States. Taxation, especially in the early days, you are essentially responsible for where you have Nexus. And Nexus has gotten even more complicated because now you have both Nexus being your physical location, but also now you have economic Nexus because you could be making, X amount of dollars in certain states and you hit those thresholds. So good to consult with a CPA or a tax advisor to make sure you understand, what you're getting yourself into, when you're going to be liable for what. But Shopify has done a good job in terms of bringing that tax data from the states into the platform. And they were one of the, early on. I mean, there were platforms who I remember even 5-6 years ago, it still didn't have this information, but Shopify really made sure they had that information early. And they still have it to this day, obviously making it easier to collect, because how would you know what the tax, you may figure out, like do a Google search and figure out the tax rate for your state, but then you have all these other layers in there. And again, depending on states, and then there's some states in the United States that don't even have sales tax at all. Lucky them. But you have to be aware of it, and making sure you understand what you need to do is important. But knowing that the data is in there, so when you set it up correctly, it is going to capture the correct data, and then you are going to know what you owe your state, the organization in your state that collects it. Like in California, it's a CDTFA, and every state has something similar to that. So that's what you would want to be aware of. Now, that's the tax side of things. There are also elements now that you need to be concerned about when it comes to accessibility. You need to pay attention. This is a bit of a hot topic, and one that I'm not going to dive too far in. I am not an accessibility expert, but I happen to know that certain states, lawyers in certain states are going after small businesses for not being compliant. Now, there are tools and layers that you can put on top that will help some of this, but even those tools and layers are now, obviously, I'm hearing that they're causing issues as well. And is very debatable, right? That's an area you want to make sure that you are. On Shopify will tell you that their themes they're geared towards accessibility, but there are things you have to pay attention to, right? You have to make sure that even down to like the alt text on the image, it's not there just for fun. It's not there. It has value in many other areas, but we're talking about people who are visually impaired or hearing impaired, and they need to be able to access your site in thousands. So there's a good thing about accessibility out there that you need to pay attention to, but make sure you understand that area. There is definitely some documentation out there to pay attention to. And then we get into policies. And this is where on Shopify, you can spin up a template. They have templates for privacy policy, terms of service, your refund policy. But I say at the end of the day, like your refund policy is your policy as a merchant, right? That's what you are telling your customer. Our refund time frame is X, Y, Z, and this is how we process it, and this is how we do it. Well, you get into privacy in terms of service, and then in certain states, like California has its own things around the privacy. You need to make sure you understand exactly what those are. The platforms will do their best to give you the ability to add that information, but I would always run that by. I mean, you can go and hire some time with a lawyer through LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer and companies like that to make sure you get the best information. There are sites like TermsFeed that give you templates. I know there's Termageddon out there that will spin up and keep it in compliance. So it gets a little tricky. And I would say it sits in the footer a lot of times, these policies, right? And merchants tend to think, oh, who cares? It's in the footer and whatever. I just click a few buttons in Shopify, I'm done. I got a policy. I would say think twice about that. Make sure you're well protected because you're putting a site out there, right? You're putting a product out there. You want to be sure that the site is accessible. You want to make sure your taxes are done right. And you want to make sure that your policies are in place. So spend the time, get a little help in that area. And that's generally going to be your tax advisor on the tax side and a attorney or a lawyer or a legal advisor who can assist you in that process.
One of, I think, the big challenges that I've seen this firsthand that can really come into play when launching a new business is if you're approaching it from a bootstrapped angle, but similarly, even if you take on outside funding, there is a certain span of time, most likely, that you're going to be operating, let's say, at a loss. Maybe very broadly, what are some pieces of advice you'd offer, whether it's someone who is bootstrapped, someone who maybe has $100K in angel investments that they acquired from friends and family, let's say. What are some pieces of guidance you'd offer for maybe how to manage that initial runway that you have until you get to a stage where your business is profitable? Maybe even in particular, what are some of the timelines that businesses maybe should anticipate seeing before they will be at a break-even standpoint?
Sure. Yeah. And the small business side of the world that I deal with, in addition to running a SKU agency, what I see is they're not coming in with a lot of money, right? Again, they may have put in a little bit of their own money, again, maybe some friends and family. And this is the question that always gets asked, especially after I make my statement of build and they won't come because you have to do marketing. Like, well, Ramin, what kind of marketing can I possibly do out there? And I know you had a guest on talking about Facebook ads, and yes, absolutely. Listen, the fastest way to growth is most likely going to be that paid advertising route. But I'm a believer in organic. I'm a believer in both search or organic search as well as organic social. And I think that if done right and you put together a good strategy, and this is obviously an area, Pat, that you can speak a lot about in terms of the organic search side of things, you can devise both with a strong content strategy in there, making sure obviously your site is searchable or is indexable. Your site can be found, and Google essentially for the most part understands what it is. And you've done all the things, and there are many, many steps. As you will tell me many times, there are many steps in this process, but it's a foundational side of the business, right? If you do that right and you work that, and I've seen this work. I mean, I've seen this work with businesses. One of the clients on the small business side of things, she worked the content strategy side. We devised a nice, strong content in 2,000 words plus, really well thought out blogs. And she ultimately grew her business by, I think it was somewhere around maybe 500% versus the previous year. I mean, massive, and all off of the back of organic search, right? Organic search is what did it. And now she's at a place where she's evaluating, and she did social in there too, but she's now at a place where she's evaluating it's time to maybe start doing ads. And I agree with it. It is. You cannot live off of that forever. You want to scale your business. You want to take it to new heights. it is time to probably look at where is your buyer persona? Where does that buyer persona reside? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Pinterest? Where are they? Are they on TikTok? All of these places, you can't be in all of them, and you probably can't run ads everywhere. This probably nobody has that kind of budget necessarily, I guess, unless they're well funded, and that's a whole other story. But then you need to start experimenting with ads. And ads are a funny thing. That's an area where I go find an expert. I don't want to mess around. If I was an emerging entrepreneur, I would go hire somebody, even if I understood it. And I understand it, but I would still go hire, because this is one of those things, monitoring that on a regular basis, making sure that you do it. And whether you get that expert off of Fiverr Pro or Upwork or hire an agency, whichever route you decide to take, I would definitely get some help. But I think organic, maybe in the first year, focusing on organic search, organic social, really working it every single day. And it will be every single day. I mean, this is not let's see how it goes, right? This is you got to work it every day. Then maybe after a year or so, you can evaluate. Now, if you hit this massive, let's say you get lucky and everything ranks and you're just skyrocketing on the search side of things and social is just working. Okay, well, let's move that timeline up and let's start looking at ads a little sooner. Google, getting into Google Shopping, it depends. It really, again, it all kind of, to me, comes back to where's your buyer persona? Understand your buyer persona. And I should probably say that beyond that requirements document, write down, figure out who your buyer persona or personas are in the early days of your business, because that will help you decide everything from content that you put out there, how you speak to your customers, to how your site is ultimately designed, to, at the end of the day, where are you going to focus your marketing efforts? And it's exciting. There's so many opportunities out there, but this is the complex side of the business, I think, is the marketing. And when do I start rolling dollars, and what dollars do I put in, and when do I put them in, and what kind of return am I expecting at the end of the day? And the answer to that is, well, it depends. And unfortunately, there's no straight answer to that. It depends on your business, your industry, where you're going, and what the opportunities are out there for if you're going after paid ads on Google, that's, a whole different ballgame than doing paid ads on Facebook or Instagram. And listen, TikTok is an animal in and of itself, and amazing. They got TikTok shops, and that keeps barking at me. Pay attention. We're growing fast over here. But I think all that is, there are great opportunities for emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs to get a business off the ground. But you got to work it. You got to work the plan. You don't expect it to day one, even day 10, or even maybe 6 months. You're still in those early startup stages.
To your point, we could go on for hours talking about different marketing strategies. I think if we were to simplify some of the key takeaways there, really try your best to learn about your customer, go to the platforms that they're engaged on. Certainly, I'm the most biased source in the world when I say, hey, invest in organic search, invest in SEO.
You've seen it work. I've seen it work. It works. It works.
We've seen it work once or twice.
Yeah.
Let's maybe one final area that I'd love to dive into today, and then I'll be respectful of your time. I'll let you go. I know that you're doing a workshop after this in a couple of minutes here, but would love to speak a little to maybe like the fulfillment / manufacturing side of things. So I want to create like a really tangible example. Let's say that I'm building my own custom sandals. Maybe initially starting out when I was running things on Etsy, I was producing them in my garage or in my parents' garage. And I was able to fulfill the 3 orders a week. It was great side cash outside of my job. But now I'm getting to the big leagues. Now I'm starting to generate 10, maybe 15 sales in a typical day. And I'm really just struggling to fulfill this. What are some either platforms or general tools that you'd recommend for me to start thinking about either how I could start outsourcing some of the manufacturing or maybe even hiring someone part-time to come help me with building these sandals?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, I have a client, that client that I mentioned organically, she makes her own products, and she's, her biggest problem right now is that she doesn't have the time to do anything else because she's created a monster in her business, right? She now has to spend so much time. So that's an area that I've been talking to her a lot about. If you're making your own products, maybe the somewhat of a natural evolution would be to hire somebody to come in, right? And try to systemize as you're making your products. Create systems, document, even set up a camera and record the process of making. Because if you create steps to making, then having somebody come in and help you wherever you find them locally, or even not locally. I know another company that they have they hired somebody to help with manufacturing of their products, and that person doesn't even live anywhere near them. They ship them the supplies that they need. And they have agreed to set up a fulfillment area in their garage, or maybe they have a workshop there. So there are definitely opportunities. But I think after that stage of hiring somebody, once you really have it dialed in and your business is expanding, you've now gone into maybe paid ads, then you're looking to outsource. And can you jump overseas and do it? Sure, right? You can there are plenty of organizations that will help you find manufacturing, but that's a lot of work. I would look here in this great country that we have. I would look here and find a place. I've got another client that I work with that makes apparel, bamboo specific apparel. And he has in downtown Los Angeles is his manufacturer, or he sends design patterns to her, and he can actually get in his car and drive there and see the work being done. And the manufacturer also warehouses for him a bit too. So he can actually take a vacation once in a while, and they will ship and take care of the orders when they come in. So there are options here, but I would say grow into something like this. Maybe don't jump from I am making the products in my house to, all right, I'm ready to hire a manufacturing facility overseas, ready to go. Let's go. Maybe research it and you understand it. The volumes are going to be a lot higher. You're going to have to commit to a lot more than you would if you continue doing it well. And I think you're going to hone your skills, and you're also going to learn how to manage somebody at the same time. Learn how to manage somebody and teach them how to make your product. And that's just adding another person to the mix. And then maybe there's another. And then at some point, you probably will have to outsource your manufacturing overseas or within the United States. So I think there's solutions for all of these situations. And I think each time you're presented with this, it's time to sit down and think through it and figure out what the next step is. And they're not problems. Don't look at them as problems. Look at honestly, and I know it made me sound a little cheesy a bit. They are truly opportunities. And they are opportunities because you're excited to build your business. If you're excited to build your business, you're going to look at any of these things, whether it be a manufacturing situation, a marketing situation, a technological situation, as an opportunity to make it better for your business and ultimately learn or hire or just expand. That's what we're here for, right? We're here to grow our business. And I know you deal with it day in and day out, and I deal with it day in and day out in different forms, right? So I think I'm excited about where e-commerce is going. And sometimes I like to remove the E and call it commerce because it's many different channels, which is why I'm putting some time and energy into also launching the e-commerce revolution, which used to be a podcast, which is you were on, is now turning into a platform. So we should have that up and running soon where you can get that guidance, and it's going to be filled with courses. It's going to be community based where you can learn. And you can learn from experts, not just me, experts like Pat as well. You're going to come on. I haven't told you this, but I'm going to ask you to come on and give that guidance, give that quick tutorial to emerging entrepreneurs where they feel that there's a chance for success, right? That's what the exciting part of all of this is.
Man, I love it. Yeah. And I would love to come on to the show. And what we'll do is we'll add a link for the site once it does go live to the show notes as well. So everyone can find that more easily. Yeah. Ramin, this has been amazing today. Thank you for coming on. Before I let you go, for listeners that want to get in touch with you, what are the best ways to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just go in there and type in Ramin, Ramin, and we'll put the link to my LinkedIn profile. Happy to reach out. You can also reach me at Ramin at SKUagency.com. You can also reach me at Ramin at ecomrevolution.co, and we'll put those in the show notes. I'm out there on social media. I'm probably not as active as I try to preach to others that they should be, because the day goes by and you get busy and things happen. But yes, I would love to hear from anybody out there who has questions on or advice. I'm claiming that I have all the knowledge in the world. There are people out there and there are podcasts that I listen to that are fantastic, where even I'm learning, always a student in the process. I think you should never stop learning, no matter what level you reach in your business, in your career. And Pat, it has been amazing to be on. I really appreciate having me on. And I love that you're doing this. This is an area that needs attention. I think emerging entrepreneurs and e-commerce entrepreneurs are definitely can gain from watching podcasts like this and getting knowledge and learning the steps to becoming successful. So thank you.
My pleasure, Ramin. Great having you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.